I don't even think Wikipedia can name them all.
There's 14 TV series, 11 OVA series. Technically, there's only 2 feature-length movies, but that third one comes out in September. 1 live-action film.
That sucked.
G-Savior.
G-Savior sucked.
Yes.
It was hilarious.
It was. There's more manga series and light novels than you can shake a beam saber at. I mean, Wikipedia probably can't even list them all. There's that many. And there's been video games since the Famicom, which is the Japanese version of the Nintendo, the original Nintendo. They've also spawned their own several arcade games. Gundam vs. Gundam is a big arcade hit. I do too. Not all Gundam series are set within the same universe. There's 7 different timelines. The Universal Century is the main timeline. The others are mostly alternate timelines, with the exception of Correct Century, which is supposed to be the timeline where everything comes together somehow.
What?
Somehow, all these like 6 other timelines come into.
That's Turn A, right?
Yeah,
yes,
Turn A.
Turn A is the. Yeah.
But it still was great nonetheless.
It was. Alright. So the main timeline is the Universal Century. This was the only timeline they dealt with for about 15 years, and is where most of Gundam series takes place. Some background about Universal Century is that most of mankind has moved off the Earth into space colonies. The ones that were left behind were either not allowed to immigrate, or they chose to stay behind on Earth. Throughout the entire Universal Century, except maybe the very end bits, the Earth is governed by the Earth Federation, who, when we first meet them in Mobile Suit Gundam, they're some pretty cool army guys. Like, we really like these guys, because they kind of are like the American army. However, we find out pretty soon afterwards that they're controlled by a bunch of corrupted officials. The Federation often tries to control Earth and the space colonies from its seat of power on Earth, which leaves them not very much authority in space because they kind of don't know really what's going on. Due to that kind of desire for control, the Principality of Zeon forms. They're a group of colonies that declared independence for space, and they declared war on the Earth Federation. At the beginning of the 1-year war, Zeon drops a space colony onto Earth, causing deaths in the billions.
Operation British!
This is basically the backdrop of the 1-year war, during which time Mobile Suit Gundam takes place. Mobile Suit Gundam, or First Gundam as some fans call it, takes place at the end of the 1-year war in Universal Century 0079. This is their calendar system, although you'll notice they're both in the year 79. Notable characters: Amuro Ray, our first Gundam protagonist; Char Aznavour, our first Char; Bright Noah, inventor of the Bright Slap. The end of the series marked the end of the 1-year war, resulting in victory for the Earth Federation. Amuro and Char would go on to become a pair of the most recognizable characters, not only in Japan, but actually throughout the world. This was the first series that really took off with the real robot genre of anime. Whereas I said earlier, all the robots were kind of for military purposes. They're just big mechanical soldiers, kind of piloted by a young hero or old guy, whoever happens to be piloting them. Welcome to the panel, guys. 5 years later, a sequel was produced called Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam. This was set in Universal Century 87, so that was 8 years later. A lot of the characters from the original Gundam returned into this series, but the protagonist this time around is a boy named Camille Bidon. This was a direct sequel to First Gundam. Oh god, I lost my place. I'm sorry, okay. This series was really the first time we see the corrupted Earth Federation, where we kind of see that there's a group out there who's trying to stop some members of the Earth Federation, because there's this elite task force called the Titans who are committing ruthless crimes, trying to find Zeon remnants, but they're really just killing anyone. It's also the first series to introduce us to cyber new types, who are crazy, and we'll get to them a little bit later. Zeta Gundam was so well received by fans that this is really what's considered to be why Gundam is such a gigantic franchise for so many years. Zeta Gundam is considered to be one of the primary factors on that. After Zeta finished, Gundam Double Zeta aired.
Ooh.
Nice sentiments, exactly. What's that? What was
Good
that?
in the beginning.
No, I heard.
One guy food.
Oh. Double Zeta was the first series not to include Amuro or Char in it. It was a lot more lighthearted and whimsical. It had a pretty low death count in terms of main characters.
I already think it sucks.
There was also a
see
lot
it.
of kind of gags running throughout the series, like Puru.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't want to get into that.
Double Zeta was also the last TV series to air for about 6 years. One part of Double Zeta's legacy is that it was really the first time we're introduced to like a team of Gundam pilots. The Argama has a whole bunch of different Gundams on it at that point, and they kind of just sortie in groups of different Gundams. After Double Zeta came the first Gundam movie, Char's Counterattack.
Woo!
This was a great movie.
Yes, it was.
It came out in 1988. It was the final conflict between Amuro and Char, and it marked the end of the Zeon and Neo-Zeon movements, supposedly. The animation quality of this movie was ridiculously superior to the TV series. I mean, you can just see the difference between Bright in Double Zeta versus Bright in Char's Counterattack. He now has eye whites, and there's a lot more detail in like the lines in his hair and stuff.
He doesn't look like he has an afro.
Yeah, that's true. After Char's Counterattack, they mostly did a bunch of OVA series, 0080, 0083.
War in the Pocket.
Yeah, that was 0080.
Yeah, it was
That's right.
They also had another movie, Gundam F91. I'm not covering these because they're not really so important in their own rights because they were kind of small bit things. Though an interesting thing is 0083 gives us the introduction of the Titans that they're trying to stop in Zeta Gundam. The next TV series came in 1993, and this was Victory Gundam. Victory Gundam takes place 60 years after Char's Counterattack. A lot of stuff has changed, and this is undeniably the darkest entry in the Gundam series and the height of Tomino's kill-em-all tendency. Tomino likes to kill off characters quite a lot. In Victory Gundam, hey guys.
Hello, please.
In Victory Gundam, there are so many main character or named character deaths that kind of whenever you find out a character's name, you can go, all right, heads or tails, he's gonna die, and you have a pretty good chance of calling it. Another reason this is considered one of the darkest series is because the protagonist, Uso Evans, is only 13 years old, and he's constantly being shown the reality of how cruel war is. Okay, here's a spoiler alert for anyone who wants spoilers, doesn't want spoilers for Victory Gundam. I don't know who you are, but in Victory Gundam, there's one part where Uso is trying to save his mother, and in the process of doing this, a battleship comes barreling from behind them. Uso instinctively dodges, and his mother is crushed by this battleship. Her head is gone flying clean off. Like I said, darkest entry in the Gundam series. After this series, Tomino took a 5-year break from directing and writing Gundam series due to a depression. The next Gundam series that came out was our first alternate timeline series set in future century. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Bear with it. G Savior we're gonna spend about 2 seconds on this. G Savior was the first and only live-action movie. It was American-made. Tomino actually voiced his dislike of this movie, but this marks the last known events of the Universal Century. Also to note is that we never hear the word Gundam in this series. It's just not present. But they're like, oh yeah, it's Universal Century though. Just go with it.